An informant sits across from him at a convenience store table. A recorder is rolling in the room. He leans in, thinking out loud, asking, would 4 feet underground be deep enough? Deep enough to keep the animals off a body? 16 days earlier, a 16-year-old girl had asked for a ride to her boyfriend's house. She never arrived. And the man on that tape was the one who had offered. 45 minutes. That was the wait. Her older sister could come pick her up in 45 minutes. For a 16-year-old with a boyfriend across town on a summer Sunday, that may as well have been a lifetime. Brittany Gregory was a straight-A student at Brick Township Memorial High School. Long blonde hair, blue eyes. A sophomore who had just finished her year. Teachers remembered her because she was genuinely engaged, not disruptive, not difficult. Classmates said she made things nicer. Her mother said she was a prize, plucked out of heaven. Brittany wanted to be a forensic scientist one day, a detail that would later become unbearable to hold. Her parents were separated. She split her life between her mother, Deborah Gregory, in Beechwood, and her father, Joseph Dunn, in Brick Township on the Jersey Shore. That Sunday, July 11th, 2004, she was at her father's place on Greenwood Loop Road. Her father wasn't home. His girlfriend wasn't home. She called her mother at 8:30 p.m. and asked for a ride. Deborah told her 45 minutes. Brittany said, okay. Around the same time, a man knocked on the door. He was looking for Brittany's father. He was not a stranger. His daughter was close with one of Brittany's older sisters. He had been an edge-of-family face for years, known enough to walk up to the house at dusk and be let in. 38 years old. Lived a mile and a half away in Howell Township. A friend had come with him, a 39-year-old sitting out in the car. The man offered Brittany a ride. She took it. It was the last decision Brittany Gregory would ever make. By morning, the house was empty and wrong. Her father's girlfriend had come home to silence. Her mother had called through the night. No one picked up. Brittany Gregory was missing. What followed was one of the largest missing person searches in Ocean County history. Brick Township Police, joined by officers from Monmouth and Ocean counties. Helicopters over wooded and swampy terrain. Bloodhounds on grid lines, volunteers walking beside them. Her photo went up on every utility pole. Her face ran on evening news across the metro region. Brick had been called the second safest city in America. That label was starting to sound very thin. A week passed. No body, no clear evidence. Then, on July 18th, investigators did something unusual. They made an arrest. Jack Fuller Jr. was charged with murder. Bail, $1 million. He denied everything. But detectives had more than they were letting on. An informant had been wearing a wire at a meeting with Fuller. On the recording, Fuller was heard, calm, conversational, asking whether 4 feet underground would be deep enough to keep animals off a body. He also talked about the friend who had been in the car that night. A friend who, on the same tape, would need to be silenced. That friend, a 39-year-old acquaintance of Fuller's, went straight to investigators. He confirmed the ride. Fuller had dropped him off in Howell. Brittany had moved from the back seat to the front. He was the last person besides Fuller to see her alive. Brittany's mother, Deborah Gregory, had spent days driving every back road between Brick and Howell, looking for her daughter. Then something came back to her. A few months earlier, Fuller had arrived home in the back of a taxi, barely conscious from an overdose. Brittany had been at the house visiting his daughter. The two of them had called 911. Brittany had stayed with him until the ambulance crew revived him. She had helped save his life. And days before his arrest, Fuller had sat in the back of Deborah's car. He had leaned in, offered her a hug, her words. Later, he had felt cold. If she had known, he would never have made it to the courthouse. On July 25th, 2,000 people gathered at a beach park for a twilight vigil. Classmates wore Brittany's face on their shirts. One of her sisters read a poem written in Brittany's voice about what comes after death. 2 days later, the bloodhounds hit on something off a wooded service road in Lakewood. The grave was 2 feet deep, under a power line off Ridge Avenue in Lakewood, about 2 miles from her father's house. Brittany had been buried without her clothes. 16 days of summer had passed. The medical examiner confirmed blunt trauma to the head, but decomposition had taken too much. A precise cause of death could not be established. The truth would not come from her body. It would come from his mouth. October 18th, 2005. A week before trial, Jack Fuller Jr. pleaded guilty to murder. Then, under questioning from his own attorney, he described what he had done. After dropping off his friend in Howell, he had stopped the car and pulled out a crack pipe. Brittany raised a hand. She told him she did not want him smoking crack in front of her. He punched her in the head, more than once. His attorney asked plainly whether he had hit her to knock her out. Fuller answered, "I did." She bled, nose, mouth. She went unconscious, her head slumped. By Fuller's own words, she started to gurgle, the sound a person makes when fluid is sitting in the airway. Fuller kept smoking. Only after he had finished getting high did he turn to check on the 16-year-old next to him. She wasn't breathing. Her father walked out of the courtroom. One of her sisters collapsed in the hallway and needed oxygen. Others sat and wept through words they had waited over a year to hear. Fuller had a long record: theft, assault, drug charges. He had been out of prison for 15 months on the night he knocked on that door. On January 13th, 2006, a judge sentenced him to 30 years. No parole. He will not be eligible for release until he is well into his 70s. Brittany Gregory was 16, straight A's, blue eyes. She wanted to be a forensic scientist one day. She did nothing wrong that night. She asked for a ride. And when a grown man did something she knew was wrong, she told him to stop. That was the sentence that cost her her life. The most dangerous person is not always a stranger. Sometimes it is the face her father already knew, the one who shows up at the door asking for someone else and stays just long enough to offer a favor. If this case stayed with you, leave one word below: heard. It helps cases like this get seen. Subscribe so the next girl's story isn't buried with hers.